Hey folks, what's up? This is Adam here. I can't see the guy. Welcome to the Movie Vault. Right, next instalment into the franchise that came in the year of 1991. Simply entitled as Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. Just got done watching it moments ago, so I can do this review. Now, after when you've seen a film like Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child, you think to yourself, can these movies get any better? Because, believe me, that was a poor instalment. In fact, it's my least favourite installment in the whole franchise, Part 5, The Dream Child. Okay. Although it did make money, not as much money as I hoped they did, but it did make money. And it was like a little bit of a hit. But they figured out now in the next installment, kill Freddy off for good. Although that is not the case, because we do see Freddy come back into the movies, like Wes Craven's New Nightmare, Freddy vs. Jason. But many people would say those movies aren't really connected to the franchise. They're just separate spin-offs, separate movies. You know, depends on how you look at it. Okay. Now, this has to be one of the most hated installments into the franchise. Now, I can understand why people hate this movie. But for me, I had fun with this movie. Yes, I know it's goofy. Yes, I know it's childish. It's fucked up to the point where you laugh hysterically because of how goofy and childish it is. You know, retarded. Especially to see, you know, where that kid's like bouncing around the room, like where Freddy's like playing him in the video game and he's torturing him by making punch holes in the walls and then falling down the staircase, going to hell and all that kind of shit. So it does have its goofy moments that make you laugh hysterically. And this movie's not scary, not one little bit. It's not like Part 1 and Part 2, where they're like really dark. Is it the most fun one in the franchise? No, I believe that Part 3, The Dream Warriors, is the most fun one in the franchise. This one is the goofiest. That's why I have to say, the goofiest. You know, and that could be good or bad. But one thing you can tell is that Robert Englund had a lot more fun in this movie. He had more loads of dialogue. Nice hearing from you, Carlos. You know, and now I'm playing with power. You forgot the power glove. You know, so you get so many different lines of dialogue, unlike he did in Part 5. In Part 5, he was like very flat. He had no lines of dialogue. And the dream sequences are put more effort in this movie as well. You know, anything can happen in dream sequences, and I do just that in Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. You know, the dream sequences are a little bit more interesting. Okay. Basically, the film opens up with this guy in like this aeroplane. You know, he's saying to the woman, "I'm afraid of heights," and she says, "Don't be a pussy." And she like flies right out of the aeroplane. He does the same thing, and his house is like floating in the air like in a tornado, like in The Wizard of Oz. And speaking of Wizard of Oz, we get a scene where Freddy Krueger's riding a fucking broom like the Wicked Witch of the West, saying, "I'll get you, my pretty, and your little soul too." You know, and I don't know if he really needed that in the film. Is it funny? To some extent, but it's not like hysterically out of this world funny. It's like chuckling funny. I mean, you could have got away with like not even putting that scene in this movie, you know. So it was an unnecessary scene, you know, being Freddy Krueger being the Wicked Witch of the West. But again, that was just to add humour like into the movie, basically. You know, he's still in dream sequence. He's rolling down a hill when he escapes the house. He sees the ticket booth guy, who I believe is one of the producers of this movie, you know, and then Freddy hits him with a bus. No screaming while the bus is in motion, and he slams on the brakes and he goes into the real world, knocking himself out on a rock, hence why he gets memory loss in the movie. And again, more dialogue. Now be a good little doggy and go fetch, you know. Some good lines of dialogue from Freddy Krueger in this movie. I'd have to say the dialogue in this movie are more entertaining and more fun than he did in all the rest of the previous movies. You know, that's just my general opinion. So basically, he now goes to this institute place where we get introduced to these other characters. We get Carlos, we get Spence, we get Tracy. I believe her name's Tracy. Let me look that up. I should know really after just watching the movie, but yeah, Tracy Spencer and Carlos. and it's like a troubled youth centre where you get Spencer, who's a stoner. We get Carlos, who's a troubled kid who's abused by his mother, where he's deaf in one ear, and Tracy, although he's tough in her own way, she was sexually abused by her father. And all three of these kids plan on running away to California. Okay. But basically, what happens is along the way, we learn that there's no more kids left in Elm Street. We get a bit more story added here and there, indicating that Freddy had a family, because there's a scene, where they go to this orphanage, and we learn that Freddy had a child called Catherine Kruger, the daughter, but she changed her name to Maggie, when Freddy got arrested. And it basically gives you like a little bit of a background story about how Freddy came to be, before he was like, murdered. And I found that like really interesting. I found that really interesting. Like, they did give like a bit of a background story. What I would have loved to have seen is like one film based on Freddy Krueger's life. And Robert Eggler did indeed mention that. And like, it's a memorabilia when I saw him. He says I was going to do a prequel called Krueger's First Kills, right, in like 2005, like 2 years after Freddy vs. Jason, where it was that whole movie based on Freddy. Started off as a child, Amanda Krueger being raped by the Thousand Maniacs, Freddy being born, being put in an orphanage, being bullied at school, growing up to being a teenager, how he fell in love, how he became a killer, story about how his first kills, and then the movie ends with him being burnt, basically. So it's basically a whole movie about Freddy, but being in human form, and Robert Eggler even confirmed that when I asked him about it, when I interviewed him, but nothing became of the prequel. So they did Freddy's Nightmares as well. They did Freddy's Nightmares, where they also talk about showing Freddy in the courthouse and how he got freed. I remember seeing that episode, but seeing a full movie about Freddy's life would have been really interesting. And I would like how they put like dibs and dabs of this in this movie, because he does show Freddy in the classroom where he kills a mouse or a rat or whatever. The kids are teasing him, calling him 100 maniacs. There's a scene like where he's a teenager and his foster family's like whipping him with a belt, and he likes to feel the pain. There's also a scene, where he kills the mother, his wife, after she discovers his basement full of all his torturous weapons after killing his victims. And he says to his little daughter, mother had to take her medicine, and it just shows like a little bit of a background story of how Freddy came to be, basically. But the rest of the movie is just all goofy killings. It is, I mean, it's like the Stone Kid Spencer where he falls asleep in the 1428 Elm Street, Johnny Depp's on the telly, this is your brain on drugs, and he cracks an egg, and Freddy's like, yeah, what do you want? Looks like a frying pan and some eggs to me. Hey, Spence, let's trip out. When he dreams like this funky sequence of music, and like when he's stoned. Spence goes into the dream sequence where Freddy's controlling him on a video game. And I think to myself, this is like a fucked up way to kill your victim, like in a video game. You're playing the video game character, and Freddy's like getting off on one, like trying to kill Spencer in the video game, letting him know that like he's killing him off for good. Carlos is deaf in one ear. There's a scene, where Freddy shoves like an earbud into his ear, and comes out the other end, and he's dropping all those pins, and they're like causing so much pain to his hearing aid, because the hearing aid gets attached to his ear. We get Tracy's scene, where she's battling Freddy a little bit, because we later learn that she was sexually abused by her father. There's a sequence of this. And we also get the scene where Maggie finds out that she's that her name was Catherine, and her name was changed to Maggie Krueger. She used to be the daughter of Freddy Krueger, because Freddy confirms this just before he kills one of his victims, that he had a girl. So this movie, I would not rank it in my personal favourites in the franchise. I mean, it's so goofy up to the point where it's really childish. But I did hate the movie. I admit I got my kick out of it, like the dream sequences, the dialogue from Freddy Krueger, the little bit of an origin where he talks about Freddy's background, about how he became, becoming like the monster that he is today. But I just wish this movie would have been like purely based on Freddy, like turning it into a prequel like we could have seen. That would have been even more interesting because one thing that did put me off of this film was the 3D at the end. The 3D was very poor at the end of the movie. Where Freddy gets plunged by his daughter and he says kids suck, and then his head explodes and you see like all these 3D animations going around and she says Freddy's dead, and then the credits roll. So definitely by far the goofiest one in the franchise. I can understand why people hate it. It's not the best one in the franchise, I admit. In fact, there's other sequences in this franchise that I'd rather see. I'd rather see part 3 more than this. I'd rather see part 4 more than this, even though that took me a lot of warming up to. I like part 4 now. So I like part 4 more than this, 2 more than this, 1 more than this. I don't even like Wes Craven's New Nightmare more than this, and Freddy vs. Jason more than this. So I'd have to say part 5 is the poorest, then Freddy's Dead, and then it goes into that little order of what we like and what we don't like and all that. But, in terms of features, there's not much to tell. I mean, we've got 4 features, A60 Hellraiser, Rachel's Dream, the 3D demise, the trailer also. So there's not really not much to tell in terms of special features of Freddy's Dead, the Final Nightmare. It's just a shame they could have really made this movie into something. I mean, look what it says at the top of the cover. They saved the best to last. And I can tell you they can shove a dildo up their ass because this movie is not the best for last. It's not the best one. Again, I'm glad Robert Englund had a lot more fun in this movie. So did the actors, but it did not make up for what it was. I mean, part 5 was poor, but at least that made some money back. I mean, I will state some more facts about this movie before I wrap it up. It made $34.9 million at the box office, with a budget between 9 and 11 million. This film was only on for 89 minutes, so it goes like at a really fast pace. I mentioned it came out in the year of 1991. In fact, its official release date was September 13th of 1991. Distributed by New Line Cinema. Directed by Rachel Talalay, which I believe is one of the first movies that she ever directed. In terms of the music in this movie, I was surprised. I like the music in this movie. I'm Awake Now by the Goo Goo Dolls. Everything Remains the Same by the Jump Monkeys. You Know What I Mean by the Goo Goo Dolls again. Remember the Night by Johnny Law. Fate's Warning, Nothing Left to Say. Give Me a Beat by the Young Lords. So, I do not mind the soundtrack in this movie. I mean, I do remember the Nightmare on Elm Street movies having some great soundtracks. I mean, I like that song that was sung in part 4, where it goes fucking A. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a very catchy tune. It's where she's getting prepared to fight Freddy, and I do remember it being a very memorable scene and a very memorable cool music. So that's one thing I can say about the Nightmare on Elm Street films. I mean, they do have some great catchy music in it. But yeah, I'm glad I'm wrapping this up now. There's not much I can say about Freddy's Dead, and it's so goofy. And no, Freddy's not dead, he'll never die. But it's definitely not one of my favourite ones in the franchise. I mean, I didn't hate the movie, but I didn't love the movie either. Again, it's the next step down from part 5, The Dream Child. So it's in one of my lowest points of movies that I did not like. So, but again, I didn't hate it, but at the end of the day, we could have done something better. It should have been a movie placed on a prequel, showing Freddy Krueger's life. Just like Robert Englund said when I met him. So, thanks for watching this, everybody. If you've got any questions, email me as soon as possible, and we'll get something started on this. I mean, I will do Wes Craven's New Nightmare review on that in the next video, which is going to be more positive but a lot more to talk about. Thanks, everyone. Peace out.